For months, the death of 18-year-old Anna Kepner was shrouded in hush-hush, secrecy and family silence. But the silence has finally been broken. As of February 2026, the mystery of Cabin 8345 has shifted from a dark investigation to a formal federal prosecution. This isn't just a story about a vacation gone wrong anymore. It is about the cold, hard reality of a homicide charge that has finally been brought into the light. The Three Amigos facade has crumbled, and the federal government has officially named its suspect. Before we dive into the explosive details of these new charges and the forensic evidence that changed everything, I need you to join the search for the truth. If you believe that no victim's story should be buried under family secrets, please like this video, share it to spread awareness, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates as this trial unfolds. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the justice system is moving fast enough? And let us know where you are watching from. The mystery of what happened behind the locked door of Cabin 8345 on the Carnival horizon has entered its most critical chapter yet. While the public was led to believe this was a tragic medical accident, the FBI has been quietly building a case that points to a calculated and violent end for a young woman who had her entire life ahead of her. The wait for an indictment is over. The breakthrough we have all been waiting for didn't come from a standard police press conference or a formal FBI statement. Instead, the truth leaked out from the cracks of a fractured family. On February 20, 2026, explosive new court documents were filed in a Brevard County custody dispute that finally confirmed what many had suspected for months. Anna Kepner's 16-year-old stepbrother, identified in filings as TH, has been officially charged by the United States Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. This revelation was tucked away in an emergency petition filed by the suspect's biological father, Thomas Hudson. The filing explicitly states that on February 3, 2026, the federal government moved to charge the teenager with homicide in connection with Anna's death. Because the suspect is a minor, the federal case has been kept under strict seal by Miami federal Judge Bate Bloom, a move designed to protect the identity of a juvenile. However, the legal firestorm between the parents has inadvertently pulled back the curtain, confirming that the FBI's month-long investigation into the Three Amigos has culminated in a criminal prosecution. The gravity of this situation was on full display just days after the charges were finalized. On February 6, 2026, the 16-year-old was spotted at the federal courthouse in Miami. He was captured on camera wearing a camouflage hoodie with the hood pulled tight over a baseball cap, shielding his face from the world as he was escorted by U.S. Marshals into a locked courtroom. There was no public docket, no explanation for the hearing, and no media allowed inside, standard protocol for a federal juvenile case. Yet the sight of the teenager being processed for pretrial release sent shockwaves through the community. The timeline is now coming into sharp focus. While the public was debating what could have happened on that ship, the federal government was meticulously assembling a case strong enough to charge a minor with a crime of this magnitude under special maritime jurisdiction. The secret is officially out. The death of Anna Kepner is no longer being treated as a tragedy to be mourned in silence, but as a homicide to be answered for in a court of law. The most chilling and definitive update in this case comes from the finalized forensic report, which has finally dismantled the theory of a medical accident once and for all. For weeks, rumors swirled about potential seizures or underlying health issues, but the medical examiner's findings tell a far more violent story. Investigators have officially ruled that Anna Kepner died of mechanical asphyxia, specifically resulting from a bar hold. This isn't a vague medical term. It describes a precise and brutal physical act. A bar hold is a type of chokehold where an arm is clamped across the front of the neck, using the forearm or the crook of the elbow to crush the windpipe and cut off the flow of oxygen. The autopsy revealed two distinct, deep bruises on the side of Anna's neck, physical evidence of the immense pressure applied to her throat. This was not a quick or accidental event. Forensic experts suggest that for mechanical asphyxia to be the cause of death, the pressure must be sustained for several minutes, meaning Anna was conscious and fighting for her life while her breath was being stolen from her. The discovery of the bar hold is a massive turning point for federal prosecutors. It suggests a level of physical control and aggression that aligns with a struggle, not a random medical episode. It also directly mirrors the disturbing testimony from Anna's older brother Andrew, who claimed that the stepfather had used similar physical restraint tactics in the past. The presence of these specific bruises on an 18-year-old varsity cheerleader, someone who was fit, healthy, and capable of defending herself, paints a haunting picture of the final moments inside Cabin 8345. By categorizing the death this way, the medical examiner has provided the how that the FBI needed to move forward with homicide charges. There is no longer any room for the hush-hush narrative that this was a tragedy no one could have predicted. The marks on Anna's neck are the silent testimony of a violent altercation that lasted far longer than anyone in that cabin has been willing to admit. The scene that awaited investigators inside cabin 8345 was not just tragic, it was a calculated attempt at concealment. According to newly released details from the investigation, when the ship's medical alert blared across the broadcast system around 11:15 a.m. on November 7, a room attendant was the first to make the gruesome discovery. Anna Kepner's body was not laying in the open, she had been hidden. Her remains were found shoved beneath a bed in the stateroom she was forced to share with her stepbrother. But the concealment didn't stop there. Reports indicate that her body had been wrapped in a blanket and then intentionally covered with a pile of orange life vests. This wasn't a case of someone falling and landing in an awkward position. This was a crime scene that had been physically manipulated to delay discovery. Investigators believe this staging suggests that whoever was in that room after the struggle took the time to try and hide what they had done, rather than immediately seeking help for a medical emergency. This specific detail, the concealment under the bed, is a massive blow to the defense's claim of a medication blackout or memory gap. The act of wrapping a body in a blanket and burying it under life jackets requires a level of physical coordination and cognitive awareness that contradicts the image of someone who didn't know what they were doing. It shows intent to hide evidence. Furthermore, the electronic keycard data from the ship's security system shows that the cabin door was accessed and locked multiple times during the window when Anna was already deceased. For the FBI, the state of cabin 8345 was a loud and clear message. They weren't just looking at a fatal altercation. They were looking at a suspect who, in the aftermath of a violent strangulation, had the presence of mind to try and vanish the victim into the shadows of a cramped cruise ship cabin. As the ship glided toward Miami, Anna lay hidden just inches beneath where her siblings were expected to sleep, a reality that has left the public and her family in a state of absolute horror. The carefully curated image of a unified, happy family hasn't just cracked, it has completely imploded. According to explosive details found in the February 2026 court filings, the three amigos dynamic was a total fabrication that dissolved the moment the Carnival Horizon docked in Miami. The most telling piece of evidence regarding the family's internal belief of the suspect's guilt is the revelation that Anna's father, Christopher Kepner, and her stepmother, Chantal, immediately expelled the 16-year-old suspect from their household. This wasn't a temporary cooling-off period, it was a total severance. The documents state that the teenager was removed from the family home and has not been allowed back since the day of Anna's death. For a family that previously insisted on the children being best friends and sharing a cramped cabin, this sudden, cold expulsion speaks volumes. It suggests that once the hush-hush atmosphere of the ship was replaced by the cold reality of an FBI interrogation, the parents could no longer ignore the danger living under their own roof. Furthermore, the legal battle reveals a household that had become a literal war zone. The suspect's biological father, Thomas Hudson, used this expulsion as a primary argument in his emergency petition for custody of his other child. He argued that if the Kepner's themselves found the 16-year-old too dangerous or unstable to remain in their home, then the environment was clearly unfit for any child. This expulsion is a powerful piece of circumstantial evidence for the prosecution. It shows that those closest to the situation, those who saw the suspect's behavior firsthand in the hours following the discovery, did not react as if a tragic accident had occurred. They reacted as if they were living with a person who had committed the unthinkable, and their first priority was to get him out of their sight. The unified front is gone, replaced by a parents versus child dynamic that proves the perfect family was nothing more than a dangerous illusion. One of the most disturbing aspects of this case is the wall of silence that was built around Anna's death before the public, and even her own biological family, knew she was gone. Investigators have highlighted a staggering 32-hour delay between the discovery of Anna's body in cabin 8345 and the moment her biological mother was finally notified. For over a day, while Anna lay in a morgue and the ship's security scrambled, her own mother was left in the dark. It has since been revealed that the notification didn't even come through a formal, compassionate phone call. Instead, the reality of the tragedy was discovered through frantic Google searches and social media rumors, while the Carnival Horizon was still making its way back to port. What happened during those 32 hours? According to leaked text messages that have surfaced in the ongoing 2026 legal proceedings, the family wasn't just in shock, they were in damage control. In a series of exchanges that have now been infamously labeled the hush-hush texts, Anna's stepmother and other family members discussed the urgent need to keep the details of the investigation quiet. These messages reveal a chillingly coordinated effort to control the narrative, with a heavy focus on protecting the future of the 16-year-old suspect. Instead of a desperate search for answers, the digital trail shows a priority on secrecy, with one family member explicitly telling others to keep things hush-hush to prevent the story from blowing up. The texts also show the family reinforcing the memory gap defense almost immediately. In one thread, the stepmother insists that the teenager does not remember what happened, calling it his truth. However, to federal investigators, this 32-hour silence provided a critical window for stories to be aligned and for a no-memory defense to be solidified before the FBI could conduct their first round of interviews. This delay wasn't just a lapse in communication, it was a tactical blackout. It suggests that while the biological side of the family was beginning a lifetime of grief, the other side of the family was already building a fortress of silence to shield a homicide suspect from the consequences of his actions. The wall of silence constructed by the adults in this case finally met its match in the form of a witness who was only feet away from the tragedy. The most damning evidence against the 16-year-old suspect doesn't come from a stranger, but from his own 14-year-old brother, who was also a resident of cabin 8345. For months, the public was led to believe that the three siblings were inseparable, the three amigos, and that nothing unusual had occurred that morning. However, explosive new details from the investigation have shattered that illusion. It has now been revealed that the 14-year-old provided a direct account of the moments leading up to the discovery of Anna's body. He reported hearing the 16-year-old stepbrother yelling at Anna in a harmful and aggressive way, specifically shouting for her to shut the hell up and using other derogatory language. He described an atmosphere of escalating tension behind that locked cabin door, one that sounded nothing like a medical event and everything like a violent confrontation. This testimony is a direct hit to the memory gap defense. If the younger brother could hear the aggression and the verbal assault from the hallway, it proves that the suspect was conscious, vocal, and engaged in a hostile altercation. But the testimony goes deeper. Reports suggest the younger brother knew something was going on because of the sheer intensity of the yelling. This account, combined with the forensic evidence of a bar hold strangulation, provides a horrifyingly clear timeline for the FBI. It suggests that while the rest of the ship was preparing to dock, a violent struggle was occurring in cabin 8345, one that was loud enough to be heard by family members just outside, by coming forward. The 14-year-old has effectively chosen the truth over the family's hush-hush pact, providing the verbal evidence needed to match the physical marks found on Anna's neck. He has become the voice for a sister who can no longer speak, proving that the sounds of a struggle were ignored until it was far too late. The gravity of this federal homicide charge became undeniable on February 6, 2026, when the 16-year-old suspect finally made a physical appearance at the federal courthouse in Miami. Because this is a juvenile proceeding under the oversight of federal Judge Bate Bloom, the hearing was conducted behind closed doors, far from the eyes of the public and the media. However, the scene outside the courthouse told its own story. The teenager was captured by news cameras, attempting to remain completely invisible, wearing a camouflage hoodie with the hood pulled tightly over a baseball cap, shielding his face as he was escorted by U.S. Marshals into a locked courtroom. This wasn't just a routine check-in. This was a critical procedural step in a federal homicide case that has remained under seal for months. While the media was barred from entering the courtroom and the docket remained obscured, the sight of the suspect being processed and led through the halls of federal justice confirmed that the FBI's investigation has moved into the realm of formal prosecution. In a federal system where juvenile cases are rarely handled unless they involve crimes of extreme significance, especially those occurring in international waters, his presence at that specific courthouse sent a clear message. The government is treating Anna Kepner's death as a high-priority felony. Following the hearing, legal observers noted a chilling detail. The suspect was reportedly being processed for pretrial release. This means that despite the severity of the homicide charge and the forensic evidence of a bar-hold strangulation, the 16-year-old was allowed to walk out of that courthouse and into the custody of a relative under strict supervision. This development has added a layer of profound outrage to the case, as the person accused of taking Anna's life is currently back in the community while her family continues to wait for a public trial. The suspect's appearance at the Miami federal courthouse was the first time the public saw the person behind the hush-hush texts and the memory gap defense. Though his face was hidden, the reality of his situation was not. He is no longer just a stepbrother on a family vacation. He is a defendant in a federal murder investigation, facing the full weight of the United States government as they seek to uncover exactly what happened in the silence of cabin 8345. The filing of federal homicide charges should have been a moment of somber relief for those seeking justice for Anna. Instead, it has ignited a firestorm of public and familial outrage. Despite the severity of the allegations and the gruesome forensic evidence of a manual strangulation, the 16-year-old suspect was not remanded to a juvenile detention center. Following his February 6th appearance in a Miami federal court, he was granted pretrial release. He walked out of that courthouse and was placed into the custody of a relative under strict supervision, a move that has felt like a slap in the face to Anna's grieving community. The reaction from Anna's biological family has been one of pure, unadulterated fury. In a searing public statement released by her father, Christopher Kepner, and her stepmother, Chantal, the family made their position crystal clear. They stated, "At this time, it is deeply painful and disturbing to our family that the person responsible is able to walk freely. This reality adds to our grief and outrage." This isn't just a standard legal disagreement, it is a total breakdown of the family unit. The very parents who initially shared a cabin with the suspect are now publicly branding him as the person responsible and expressing horror that he is not behind bars while awaiting trial. This outrage has spilled over into a digital battlefield. Leaked social media posts from within the Kepner family circle show an even more raw perspective, with relatives reportedly calling for the nails in the coffin and stating they want the suspect buried for what he did to Anna. The contrast is jarring. While the federal government treats the suspect with the vast protections afforded to minors, keeping his name sealed and allowing him to return to a home environment, Anna's family is mourning a girl who will never come home. The decision to grant pretrial release in a homicide case involving such twisted obsession and physical violence has turned this legal proceeding into a lightning rod for criticism. Many are asking the same question. If the evidence was strong enough for a federal homicide charge, how can the system justify letting the accused walk the streets while a family buries their daughter? As we move deeper into 2026, the question on everyone's mind is no longer who, but where. Where will this case end up? Currently, the 16-year-old suspect is being processed in the federal juvenile system under the seal of Miami federal Judge Bloom. But in a case involving a death this violent, a manual strangulation by bar hold, and the deliberate concealment of a body, prosecutors are facing immense pressure to move this out of the juvenile system. Under federal law, the government can file a motion to transfer, a legal mechanism that would allow this 16-year-old to be tried as an adult. If that motion is granted, the seal on this case will vanish, the suspect's name will be made public, and he will face the same potential life sentences as any adult charged with homicide. The stakes for this decision are astronomical. If he remains in the juvenile system, the focus will be on rehabilitation, and any potential sentence would typically end when he reaches the age of 21. For many, including Anna's father and biological mother, that feels like a gross miscarriage of justice. They are fighting for the full weight of the law to be applied. Legal experts suggest that the sheer brutality of the forensic evidence, the deliberate force required to cause mechanical asphyxia, is the prosecution's strongest argument for a transfer. They will likely argue that a crime of this nature, combined with the efforts to hide Anna's body under life vests, shows a level of maturity and criminal intent that far exceeds a juvenile mistake. For now, the legal system moves at a pace that feels agonizingly slow to those who loved Anna. Her car, still parked at her high school and covered in flowers and tributes, stands as a silent reminder of the life that was stolen. As we wait for the US attorney's next move, one thing is certain: the world is watching. This case has touched a nerve because it happened in a place where people are supposed to be safe, on a family vacation, behind a cabin door. The fight for justice for Anna is far from over, and we will be here to cover every second of the trial, every ruling from Judge Bloom, and every breakthrough until the truth is fully answered for in court.